is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What up, folks? It is a fantastic Thursday here on Money Moves. Not only do we have somebody else with us here today, Ben Stevens riding shotgun for the next 2 days as we get you ready for the Sweet 16, but it is opening day for Major League Baseball in full. I have actually been partaking in the ceremonies downstairs. We had Dave Stewart, former A's pitcher, out there throwing out the ceremonial first pitch. Paul Skeens has already been chased from his start against the New York Mets. It's not even 11 o'clock, or it just hit it on the West Coast, Ben, and we are already having quite a day. What's up, man?
What's up, JVT? Very glad to be with you here. It is Sweet 16 Thursday, 3 days away from the madness. It returns to our life with an awesome second weekend about to begin in the NCAA tournament and 11 Major League Baseball games. On opening day, follow opening night. And if you bet the over between the Buccos and the Mets today at Citi Field on a cold and blustery day in Queens, you already cashed that over 6.5 because Paul Skeens gave up 5 earned in the bottom half of the first. What a way to begin 2026 in the MLB season for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yes, indeed. And part of that was O'Neal Cruz losing a ball in the sun in center field and allowing it to drop, which allowed that 5th run to come in. So Skeens not perfect, but also not all of his fault. We'll keep track of that. We also have a fantastic slate of games entirely, including one that I'm very excited for coming up in about 5 minutes from now. Chicago White Sox, the Milwaukee Brewers. Just to give our audience a little taste of where we're at here for this one. Milwaukee right now, about $1.84, $1.85 favorite, depending where you look. 7.5 to the over. Haven't really moved in terms of the side, but the total has been bumped down a little bit after opening 8, shaded to the over at -115. Jacob Misiorowski is going to get the start here for the Milwaukee Brewers. So everybody's eyes will be on the Miz to see whether or not he can recreate the magic. Shane Smith getting the start on the other side here. This is our first show together. I know you as the college football, college basketball guy. Do you dabble at all in Major League Baseball?
It is not my area of expertise by any means, JVT, but of course I do love it. I love Major League Baseball opening day, and as I will be hosting live bets Saturday and Sunday, hopefully throughout the summer months, I will make sure that I am very informed of everything that is happening around MLB. I love it just from the perspective that it always provides nostalgia for me. I grew up in Southern California. I am back in Los Angeles. I grew up listening to Vince Scully basically each and every summer night, watching the LA Dodgers. I'm not the largest Dodgers fan anymore, and I don't think it's exactly very fun to be a Dodgers fan at this moment as they look to three-peat and win yet another World Series. But I do have some bets on win totals entering this year. In fact, with the team that started us off on this 11-game slate on a Thursday for MLB opening day, I'm over for the Pittsburgh Pirates of their preseason win total, around 78.5. I'm on the under for the St. Louis Cardinals, also in the National League Central, of their win total of 69 and a hook. And I'm very excited to see that matchup that you mentioned in Milwaukee. A Brew Crew team, JVT, that everybody continuously says, well, you can't bet against Milwaukee. Even when they trade away some of their best pieces each and every year, like Freddie Peralta and a couple of guys that finished 3rd and 4th in the NL Rookie of the Year. You got to trust in Pat Murphy to contend in the National League Central. So who could bet against that? And the Chicago White Sox might still might still lose, I should say, like 95 games this season, but they could be fun on the South side.
Yeah, I would agree. I do have an over-win total on the Chicago White Sox myself, 67.5, so we'll be sweating that out. And just for funsies, because we have to have something to track here during the show, took a little piece of just over +150 on the White Sox today. So we'll see what we can get back for Chicago. We'll track that once it gets started. First pitch slated for 7 minutes from now. But let's start where we're all excited for. The Sweet 16, of course, tips off later tonight. We have 4 games on the docket, and we are all very excited for them. So we'll start in rotation order, get your thoughts. And Greg Peterson is going to join us shortly here as we'll get his thoughts on these games too. But Illinois and Houston, this has been a game that has been very interesting to me. I have not bet this yet at all. But Ben, I have really come around on this Houston team, and it's not like it took a lot. They're one of the best teams in the country. But watching them, their defense is fantastic. Offense leaves some to be desired, including the fact that we wanted to get to the free throw line. We wanted to take more shots at the rim, but they're such an elite jump shooting team with the way they play defensively. And the way this bracket has opened up for them, you're not really supposed to bet futures at this point right now at the NCAA tournament, but I couldn't turn away +750. I added them portfolio, and obviously I think they can get it done here against Illinois. But what do you make of this matchup against the Illini later tonight?
Yeah, I think, JVT, you could argue the South Regional semifinal in Houston, Texas is probably the South Regional final, as whoever wins tonight, the Cougs or the Illini, will be a pretty hefty favorite probably come Saturday evening against the winner of the Iowa and Nebraska game that starts our games of 2 tonight inside the Toyota Center. Much like you, I'm on Houston. I have the Houston Cougars winning the South region in my bracket, advancing to a Final Four. Now, I assumed Houston was going to have to win a national championship game rematch from a season ago and knocking off and ousting the reigning champs in the Gators. But because of that, the path even more favorable. I think the key here tonight is this Houston defense, always elite under Kelvin Sampson, fourth most efficient in the country, against an Illinois offense that for a good majority of this season was the most efficient in all of college basketball, not just this season, but in the damn near 3 decades of the Ken Pom era dating back to 1996-97. Now, Purdue has overtaken them ever so slightly because of a great run in the last 2 weeks on neutral courts. But can this Illinois three-point attack, for a team that shoots more than half of their overall field goal tries from deep, for a team that gets about 39% of its offensive points production this year from beyond that three-point line, can it be overwhelming to make up for some of the clear advantages that I think Houston has in this game to keep it close as the odds makers expect? It's a possession game. It's a 2.5-point spread in favor of Houston. For most of this week, JVT, that was 3.5 in favor of the Cougs. Some buyback in the Illini. I think Houston wins this game. I think Houston plays in the Elite Eight. They'll have a very friendly environment in Houston, Texas the next few days through this weekend. And I think Houston will be making a trip to Indianapolis once again for a spot in the Final Four.
The total, I think, is actually pretty fascinating. We're at 140.5. We saw some first numbers pop up at 144. I think volatility might be the right word to use for the way that this game could be played, because you mentioned it, Illinois and how many threes they take from beyond the arc. We talked about Houston and their jump shooting and their penchant for shooting threes as well, and their ability to shoot. I feel like you could get 2 here, Ben. You could get one of these games where both teams are just on and jump shots are falling from all over the place, and you get a high-scoring affair between the two regardless of pace. But then you could also get one of these where we're playing in a slightly different building. I know it's in Houston, the city, but it's not their own gym. And all of a sudden, if we're getting a rock fight because these jumpers aren't falling and you get a really slow, disjointed start or maybe a second half, which doesn't get there, the total, I think, has so many different outcomes because of the way these two teams played. I had no real read on the way this thing was going to go.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Anytime you see a total and you see Houston basketball and you know the defensive stats and you know the pace they play, Illinois rather slow as well in terms of everything that they want to do. A little bit faster when they're on the offensive end than their overall adjusted tempo throughout the entirety of a game. You think the under. It's Houston. If they're going to win, even as a slight favorite, they are controlling possessions tonight. And I think they have some advantages, which is why I like Houston to win this game and continue its march through the madness all the way to a Final Four. But JVT, it's interesting. Both the betting public, 61% of the betting handle right now, currently updated on DraftKings on the over, and the sharp sports books like Circa, 90% of the handle currently on the over of a total posted at Circa at 140 for that over-under tonight. It's not a high bar to get 141 points in a college basketball game with what is the second best offense that we have seen in the last 2.5, 3 decades in college hoops, that being Brad Underwood and his Fighting Illini. And one of the key differences for, I think, Houston this year, last year they were a great three-point shooting team. It helped them overcome some of those offensive woes at times. This year, 10th most efficient offense in the country, and an NBA-ready guard in Kingston Flemings that I think can be that differentiating factor for Houston to make that run to a Final Four. I would not be surprised to see this game played into the mid-140s. I don't think if this game trends to the over or the under, necessarily stylistically, it favors one team or the other.
Yep, I would agree there. That is going to be at 7:05 p.m. Pacific time, 10:05 for those of you out there on the East Coast, out in Houston. How much do you think playing in Houston helps this team?
I think it does. I think it will be an overwhelming crowd. But there are 3 Big Ten programs of the 4 in the South region this weekend. We know that Iowa and Nebraska and Illinois all have great traveling fan bases. I saw a stat from Evan Abrams for Action Network, who follows all of these trends, especially from the betting perspective for the NCAA tournament. Houston in the state of Texas has been unblemished in NCAA tournament action, and specifically in their hometown of Houston, a perfect 3-0 outright. Again, it's just a 2.5-point spread. I think Houston wins this game. I would lay the number with the Cougs. I didn't necessarily get to the window to bet that exact spread, JVT, in favor of Houston tonight, but I do think the friendly environment both tonight and certainly on Saturday evening against whatever fan base is still staying between the Hawks and the Huskers is going to be a tremendous benefit for the Cougars.
Do you think that this is, because we're going to get to obviously these other games, Iowa and Nebraska is going to be, all of these games are fantastic. This is going to be the first in this little region right here. Nebraska, 1.5 point favorite, total of 132.5. But you mentioned the presence of the Big Ten as we head out here. Is this representative of the quality of the conference? In the first round, in the first week, and we talked a lot about the ACC's failings, and here we are with a heavy Big Ten contingent in this, of course, Sweet 16 round and maybe beyond to the Elite Eight.
JVT, at the end of March, it's not often that Big Ten fans or people that have a bunch of Big Ten pennants behind them can brag on this conference in the NCAA tournament. But in the last few years, that has been the case, and especially here in the 2026 Big Dance. 6 Big Ten teams into the Sweet 16. That a record for this league. Of course, it is a conference still searching for its first national championship in men's college basketball in the last 2.5 decades since Tom Izzo and his Spartans won a title back in the year 2000. It has been a very long time. There has been a lot of great quality Big Ten teams in the last few years that have fallen short of the expectations of reaching that pinnacle in college hoops. In fact, in the last 5 NCAA tournaments, only one Big Ten team reaching the Final Four. That was Purdue playing in a national championship game back 2 years ago in 2024. The opportunity is there for these Big Ten teams. They have been covering numbers like crazy. We'll see how it plays out now in the second weekend when that anticipated level steps up just even a little bit more.
All right, the roof is closed in Milwaukee. We're about to watch Mizrowski throw out the first pitch here. Anthony Rizzo just threw out the ceremonial first pitch for the Chicago Cubs as they take on the Washington Nationals. We got a full schedule today. We'll hit Major League Baseball. We'll hit college basketball. It's a short NBA card. We continue to cover all of our bases. Get it? On opening day. Ben Stevens is alongside all day. When we come back, Greg Hoops Peterson will join us. We'll get his thoughts on the Sweet 16.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, come and chat with Greg Hoops Peterson, brought to you by Upside. Download the free Upside app. Earn real cash back every time you fill up. Use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. And speaking of tanks, Chase Meidroth with one off Jacob Mizrowski. White Sox up 1-0, top of the first here on opening day. A day where some aces might be struggling. Paul Skeens chased early. Mizrowski's cooked. He's already done. Hopefully he absolutely gets raked. We're sweating out the White Sox at a plus price here to get it done today. Mizrowski, as I speak, Ben, strikes out the next guy up. So I think he's going to be fine, but time will tell. Time will tell. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's head out to the Progressive Guest Line. Welcome to Greg Hoops Peterson, who's with us here now. And I will take our audience behind the scene very quickly. And I mean this in a loving way for both of you. But the absolute nerd down I heard from both of you guys about Purdue and playing in Indiana and all of this nonsense while we were talking about this during the commercial break. I was just sitting back and listening. Absolutely fantastic. So let's start with the Boilermakers. Bring it on the air, boys. Greg, what do we make of Purdue in this situation they find themselves in here in the Sweet 16?
I like this situation for Purdue. Truth be told, I filled them out with them winning my bracket, and I think that they get the job done here. I laid the 7.5 with Purdue. They've been a really good offensive team all season long, lead the country in points per possession and games played away from home. And yes, Texas have been much better when they've been playing here in the NCAA tournament on defense, but even with the last 3 games, they are still outside the top 300 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis away from home. They are still allowing teams to shoot 38.1% from three-point range in games played away from home all season long. It's a big concern when you go up against a Purdue team that already has a backcourt that has been to a title. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, those guys have been rock solid for Purdue for many years. You still have Trey Kaufman, Wren and company down low. That's not going to allow Texas to get the second and third chances that they're accustomed to. So I think that things broke really well for Purdue. I do like that 147.5 to the over. even though they're a slow team, about 335th in terms of total possessions per game. I think they're efficient enough to get the over. I think that they get it done later with Purdue and took a shot on the over.
Greg and I have many things in common: a national championship ticket on the Boilermakers, our love of college basketball, and an overall general affinity, I would say, for the greater Midwestern portion of this country.
Yes.
And Greg, there's a lot of Midwest teams making their way to Houston, Texas, where we have 3 of the 4 in the South Regional semifinals hailing from the Big Ten Conference, including a game that I frankly never expected to see: Iowa and Nebraska squaring off in the Sweet 16. It's our second of 4 matchups on Sweet 16 Thursday. It's a 1.5 in favor of the Cornhuskers, and it's a low total, Greg, of 132 and a hook. I am going to sit back and watch this game in pure wonder. What is Greg Hoops Peterson going to do with the matchup between the Huskers and the Hawkeyes?
Laid the 1.5 here with Nebraska, and I do think that the X factor for Nebraska is Rienk Mast, because for Iowa, they are such a good team in terms of generating turnovers, top 15 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis on defense. Nebraska, they do a really good job in terms of taking care of the ball, top 50 team in terms of fewest turnovers. And for this Iowa team, the one real wart that they've got is that they don't have a guy that gives you 5+ rebounds per game. Now, they do a nice job by committee: Tavion Banks, Bennett Sturts, Fulgarius with a massive shot to be able to get Iowa here. They do an okay job, but I just don't think that they're able to stand up to Rienk Mast. 13 points, 6 rebounds. He does a nice job down low. And for Nebraska, with the way that they're able to take care of the ball and the way that they just guard the arc, opponents take 50% of their field goal attempts from 3, and yet they're 9th in the country in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. I think that allows Nebraska to get the job done. Now, I have seen this total go from 131.5 to 132.5. Seems like a little bit of money is coming in on the over. I agree with that because I think that this is close enough for late Fells to be able to get you over. So, like the over and lay the 1.5 with Nebraska.
All right, let's go to one we opened up with here, and we'll stick with the theme of the Big Ten teams. Illinois and Houston, we're seeing that slow buyback on Illinois after this got up to 3.5 earlier in the week. Greg, now down to 2.5. Totals anywhere from 140 to 139. What do you make of it?
Yeah, and there were even some 4s out there as well, and now this is starting to come back downward, but I don't need the points. I like Illinois here on the money line, because with Illinois, I think that they do a nice job in terms of not allowing Houston to get to the free throw line. Out of 365 Division I teams, number 1 in terms of fewest free throw attempts allowed per game. Now, the one thing that Houston has done an amazing job of, taking care of the ball. Top 5 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Illinois is not concerned about that one bit. They generate the fewest turnovers of any team in all of college basketball. They just don't want you to get clean looks, and they specialize in that. Top 45 team in terms of opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. You've got the Avicic brothers down low. David Mirkovic has been really good down low as well. And Houston, uncharacteristically, outside the top 100 in terms of defensive rebound percentage, that'll give more second and third chances to an Illinois team that has done a great job taking care of the ball, doing the little things on offense. I like Illinois, even though this is a true road game, to get the job done, like the money line. And I mean, I know that you guys were mentioning it in the previous segment, but both of these teams just really slow outside the top 275 in terms of total possessions per game. That put me on this 140 and after the under.
Illinois looking for its second trip in the last 3 years to the Elite Eight. They had not been to the Elite Eight prior to 2024 since 2005, and of course playing in a national championship game. Our first of 2 tonight in San Jose is that Purdue and Texas matchup. Our nightcap out in Northern California is the 1 seed in the West region, Greg. It's Arizona taking on John Calipari and Arkansas. It is now an 8.5-point spread on DraftKings in favor of Tommy Lloyd and his Cats. Just how competitive do you expect this game to be between the Razorbacks and the Wildcats?
And it's an interesting something's got to give sort of scenario, because Tommy Lloyd has never taken Arizona to the Elite Eight. Meanwhile, you've got an Arkansas team that, well, they have not been great on defense. 200th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. I did take the 8.5, though. I'm just a believer that Acuff does a nice job in terms of keeping Arkansas in this game with what you've been able to get out of him. 23+ points per game, 6.5 assists, shoots over 40% from 3. And I mean, that has overshadowed what we've seen out of Blake Thomas. Like, Blake Thomas has given this Arkansas team 40+% 3-point shooting, 15 points per game. Arkansas, 3rd in the country in terms of points per possession. They commit the fewest turnovers per possession of any team in all of college basketball. I do think that the Arizona defense does keep you under. I've seen this total tick down to about 164.5. This was hovering more around a 166 in the AM. I do agree with that, just because with Arizona, very stout down low, top 10 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. And Arizona's going to have that nice edge down low. Montevis Krivas, Toby Awaka, they combine for 17 plus rebounds per game. And when they need to shoot the three, Jaden Bradley and company have been solid, but that's not really what Arizona's looking to do. Top 40 team in percentage of their field goal attempts that come from 2-point range. Think that keeps you under. I took the points with Arkansas.
You know, Greg, I got a phone call this morning, and it was my mom, and she asked me, hey, you know, St. John's, they seem pretty live here against Duke. Everybody and their mother liking the Johnnies here against the Blue Devils, despite the fact that I've watched a half-court offense that looked like absolute you-know-what through the first couple of games, especially that Kansas game. What am I missing here? People keep saying, why is it 6.5? I keep asking, why do the Johnnies get this blind support?
And that's a big reason why I do like the under in this game. Right now, we're seeing that at a 141.5 because St. John's actually plays quite up tempo. They're a top 50 team in terms of total possessions per game. Not doing a great job there, but Duke has looked very shakier in the NCAA tournament as well. They very nearly lose that game against Siena. They were able to pull away against CCU, but had that, shall we say, questionable goaltend situation and then the technical on Jamie Dixon. So that was something that helped them out quite a bit. They're clearly missing Caleb Foster, and I actually ran the numbers without Caleb Foster in the 5 games without him. Duke is shooting just 44.3% from the floor and 30% from three. You have a St. John's team that has been a top 75 team in terms of generating turnovers. They are the team that does a really good job on the glass as well. Top 35 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage. I think that St. John's holds in there mainly because I'm really not loving what I'm seeing out of either team on the offensive end right now. So I like that under. And with St. John's, I took at the time 7 with them. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of 6.5s.
I agree with you both, by the way. I told my mom to bet the under of 141.5 for tomorrow night to start things off in the East region. So she loves that breakdown, Greg, no doubt about it. Final minute of this segment, Hoops. Of the other 3 games on Sweet 16 Friday, what is your favorite bet?
We've got ourselves an interesting situation with Iowa State versus Tennessee. So I want to stay off of that one a little bit, but I just took Michigan State outright on the money line. With Michigan State, this is a bunch that I think that they're going to be able to do a good job of winning the battle on the glass. Number one, in terms of defensive rebound percentage away from them, they are allowing teams to only grab about 19% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound away from them. And Michigan State, they shoot over 40% from 3-point range away from them, with Jeremy Fears giving 9+ assists per game. And Silas Emery did come back in that round of 32 game for UConn, was not at 100%. Don't know if he's going to be at 100% in this game. 2 great coaches in Izzo versus Dan Hurley. Give me Izzo in this spot. I took Michigan State on the money line.
Follow him up on X at GUnit_81. Gregory is always going to talk to you, buddy. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Always fun, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. I lied, by the way. My mom and I don't talk. She disowned me a while ago, but still, the point stands. Ben Stevens with us here. I'm also lying about that. I think my mom loves me. Shane Smith is going to give this thing up, a double here to Yelich. Bottom of the first inning, still 1-0. All right, when we come back, we'll give you some updates on some of the scores. We're inching closer to some noon first pitches as well. We'll also continue to give our takes on these games. But remember, this segment in our conversation with Greg brought to you by Upside. Turn your gas purchases into real cash back with the free Upside app. Download Upside now. Use promo code SPORTS. 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're in a little bit of a pickle here. We got the White Sox to win this game on the money line. Bottom of the first inning, 2 outs, but a runner on third. Vaughn against Shane Smith, 0-1 count. So we'll see if my guy Smith can get out of here. He's been my guy for, I don't know, when did this game start? 11:30. So for 10 minutes, he's been my guy, Shane Smith, and he will continue to be my guy unless he lets me down. And I pitch way outside, so not my guy right now. All right, Ben Stevens alongside. He'll be here today and tomorrow as we're getting ready for college basketball, and we will get back to that. As we were talking at the break, I am an NBA guy, but the events of yesterday plus a very good baseball tweet from Joel Embiid had us talking a little association in the break. A good one from Embiid, as those who were just joining us, Paul Skeens got chased very early in this game against the New York Mets. Not a good day for the Pirates ace. White Sox are going to get out of the inning. Hell yeah. But Skeens gives up here everywhere. We're everywhere, Ben. I will be able to keep track of everything, I promise. 2/3 of an inning, 4 hits, 5 earned runs, struck out just 1, walked 2. But part of the inning was Oneil Cruz losing a ball in the sun and allowing it to drop into center for another one of those runs to score. Joel Embiid tweeting out, Oneil Cruz, get ready to learn DH, buddy. And I think that I would generally agree. He had sunglasses on, Ben, and he still lost it in the sun. What's the point of the sunglasses?
If you're going to wear the specs, especially the fancy specs that baseball players wear when they're out in the field, they have to also be performance enhancing. They cannot just be for the style to look good, feel good. You better be playing good as well. I really hope we kind of get a Twitter beef now between Joel Embiid and Oneil Cruz. I hope he tweets back, get ready to learn first round exit, buddy. And we have a little bit of fun between these two sides. I was wondering, JVT, and I asked you, is Joel Embiid a Mets fan? Can you be a Mets fan and play for a Philadelphia professional organization? I don't assume that he's a fan of the other side of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and rooting for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I would love to know if JoJo is a fan of a Major League Baseball team or if he's just enjoying opening day like everybody else.
Yeah, he's probably enjoying opening day, I would assume, like everybody else. Not much in his profile points to connections to either the Mets or the Pirates outside of playing in the state of Philadelphia. In terms, I have to issue a correction for the sake of journalism here. Oneil Cruz was not wearing sunglasses. I just pulled the clip up. He was not wearing sunglasses. So maybe he should start wearing sunglasses so they can help him.
That was the issue.
Yes, exactly. He was shading his eyes and he couldn't see the ball. So either way, not going well for the Pirates. Not going well for the Philadelphia 76ers as a whole, but we did watch an entertaining game yesterday, a ridiculous affair between them and the Chicago Bulls. One would call it a basketball game, some would call it pickup hoops, but either way, a ridiculous final score between the 76ers and Bulls of 157 to 137. However, not the craziest game of the day. Everybody was talking about this last night. The Houston Rockets taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Timberwolves, of course, without Anthony Edwards yesterday in a small dog spot against the Rockets. The final, 110 to 108, nothing to write home about. It is the end of the game, Ben, that really takes the cake here. For those who weren't keeping track, the Wolves led by 11 with 3 minutes and 47 seconds left to go in the fourth quarter. The Rockets went on a 12-0 run to then take a 1-point lead. The Wolves took the lead back. KD tied it with a free throw, and then Şengün blocks a shot to then force overtime. Rockets open overtime. They go on a 13-0 run to start the overtime period, and you're thinking, we're done here. This is over. The Wolves respond with a 15-0 run to then win the game by 2 at home without their best player. I don't know what you call what that was yesterday. But these are two teams that I don't think are serious basketball clubs for the most part because of their inconsistencies. But the Rockets I will focus on just briefly. You just lost outright as an 8.5-point favorite to the Chicago Bulls the other day. You get to go on the road to take on the Timberwolves, who don't have Anthony Edwards in the lineup, and you still lose this game. And I will challenge anybody, Ben, go watch the 15-0 run for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would count at least 8 blow-bys, just pure dribble drive of Alperen Şengün flaming his arms around, having no idea what he's doing. This team's falling apart. Udoka's got nothing. Going into huddles and calling your guys a-holes over and over again just isn't really working at this point right now. And now you look at this for Houston, a team that did have everything in front of them. Absolute non-starter. Do not think they're going to be competitive in the postseason. This team looks like it's falling apart, and Udoka should probably be on the way out after the season if this continues in this direction.
About 2.5 weeks ago, the Houston Rockets were in the 3 spot in the Western Conference standings. Because of their struggles, they have plummeted. They lose to Minnesota last night. They're now a game and a half behind the T-Wolves in that 5-6 split in the Western Conference standings. JBT, I was looking at this game, looking at the recap from last night, and I'm reading the article, and I'm like, Minnesota closes the game on a 15-0 run. Oh, what a comeback by the Timberwolves. Wait. The game was in overtime that they closed the game on a 15-0 run in OT. And then you see that Houston starts the overtime session on a 13-0 run. These two teams did not exchange a single bucket in those extra 5 minutes of overtime. You mentioned KD hit the free throw to tie the game that sent us into extras. Kevin Durant was at the foul line, fouled by Julius Randle, who hit the game-winning basket for Minnesota with just over 3 seconds left. He misses the first of 2 free throws. I'm not sure if you saw it. I believe he intentionally missed the second because they were down by 2, hoping for a tip-in or an extra possession with only 3 seconds remaining. Kevin Durant's free throw struggles Also why Minnesota ends up prevailing on that 15-0 run to win by 2 as the slight home underdog. And again, extend a little bit of distance there in front of Houston to stay in that 4-5 matchup in the potential opening round of the Western Conference playoffs.
Yeah, this has been a wild ride for Houston, for Durant too. They really do obviously miss, and they never really got him with Kevin Durant. Fred VanVleet, they don't have a true point guard.
Yeah.
The offense has been a mystery and a nightmare. They've tried to insert Reed Shepherd, and that has kind of worked, but not entirely. And when they make it to the postseason, when you get down to the final 16 after the play-in, they're going to be one of the worst, if not the worst, half-court offenses in terms of efficiency once we start, and that's not changing anytime soon. So an incredible result. By the way, Jim checks in up on X, says Embiid is chirping a guy that actually starts in games for his team. That's a fair shot, Jim. So we appreciate that, and thank you very much for listening and watching up at VSiN.com and or wherever you're watching SiriusXM Channel 158, any one of our many affiliates around the country. NBA card today, don't have much really. First off, it's a Sweet 16. Second, there's 3 games, and that's really it. And I will point out, one of them, Orlando, a 15.5-point favorite with a total of 230.5. Magic have lost 5 straight now, and one of those losses was as about a 12.5-point favorite against the Indiana Pacers at home. So I don't know if you really trust against the Kings that this Orlando team is going to be able to cover that number, but we will point out, the Charlotte Hornets today, a 1.5-point favorite at home against the New York Knicks. I'm not sure how much you've been following what Charlotte's done. This is a very pro Charlotte Hornets show on Money Moves. We got a lot riding on this team to make the play-in, to make the playoffs. We had over the win total. This has been one of the statistically the best teams in the NBA, and I think it's about time to start power rating them as such. This number would tell you that that is not the case, that they are still slightly worse than the New York Knicks, and I would very much question that. They have a very clean injury report today, too. Only Pat Connaughton is questionable. He's not going to move a number. I think the Hornets might be live here at home. They'd be the only NBA sweat of the day, but do you have Hornets fever? Have you been stung by the Buzz City?
Yes, I certainly have, JVT, because the very first time I filled in here on Money Moves was the end of January, early February with Stormy, and I heard about the Charlotte Hornets win-o-meter, and it was right in the middle, maybe 3-4 games in to that 9-game win streak that kind of bridged the months of January into February. And at that time, before the 9-game win streak, when Charlotte was 16-28, it was starting to turn things around. 16-28, back right before I filled in for the first time on Money Moves. You look at the updated record for Charlotte, 38-34, 22-6 in the last 2+ months in the association. And I think it is really interesting to even see the Hornets as a slight home favorite, because it's not like the Knicks are entering on poor form. New York has won 7 consecutive games. They've been at least an 8.5-point favorite at all 7 of those consecutive victories. The Knicks, since the All-Star break, 3-1 outright as an underdog, and ever so slight dog here. But I do think we are starting to see just a tad of a change in the overall perception of the Hornets, and deservedly so. Probably should be a little bit of a larger spread for Charlotte at home tonight, but a really interesting game between 2 playoff teams in the Eastern Conference, it seems.
Since January 1st, the turn of the new year, the San Antonio Spurs have the second best point differential in terms of net rating and non-garbage time. They've outscored opponents by 11.6 points per 100 possessions. They're 31-9 in those games. I mentioned they are second because there is only one team ahead of them, the Charlotte Hornets. They have outscored opponents by 12 points per 100 possessions, and they are 27-12, statistically on par with some of the best teams in the NBA at this point right now. Hey, folks, free picks backed by real analysis. If you're looking for it, that's Just Win Bets, baby. Mathematical models, AI-driven best bets across NFL, college hoops, NBA, NHL, UFC, soccer, and more, plus a live weekend preview every Friday. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on X, get their free daily best bets newsletter at justwinbetsbaby.com. Update of Major League Baseball as we are sweating this thing out. Got a runner on first for the White Sox at the top of the first against the Miz with 2 outs and an 0-1 count. So Mizorowski trying to get out of here. Pitch count's getting up there, though. Mizorowski already with 41 pitches at the top of the second inning. Coming up at the top of the next hour, got a couple of games in Major League Baseball we will get to, including one team that I've got an under on with their win total. We'll talk about who that is. And in fact, it's 2 dueling teams because I think their opponent might be a surprise in the American League. When we come back, though, we'll also get to more of the Sweet 16 action. I love this side, and guess what? It's our first show together. So does Ben. I don't know if he loves it, but I know he's got it. And we'll talk about that and why I think this matchup is perfect for this team. Find out when we return here on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We'll see if my guy Shane Smith can continue to make some magic happen here. Totally outpitching Jacob Mezarowski at this point. I'm just going to say it. That is a statistical fact right now. Ben Stevens is alongside, statistically outperforming Stormy Buonantony, who is not with us here. We got the order of destinations wrong, by the way. She is in the Philippines right now. She is going to Japan next week. I'm trying not to laugh as I say that. It is what a trip, what a life that Stormy Buonantony leads. She texted me as part of so I roped her into a fantasy baseball league because we needed an extra and she wanted to do it. And, there's already issues about starting her lineups and all these sort of things. And I'm in the Philippines. Like, they have internet out there. We can do these sort of things. But I'm purposely ignoring Stormy Buonantony because I want to drive home the point that I want her to think I'm mad at her for taking this time off. Ben, right before she left, we were all out gathered and whatnot. And, she said goodbye to me and she grabbed my hand and she was like, I just want to say thank you for, and I just said, yeah, you got it. So I really want to drive home the fact that I want her to think that I'm very mad at her by the time she returns. But either way, let's get back to college basketball. Not mad at Ben Stevens. He's going to be with us here for the rest of the day and tomorrow as we get ready for college hoops. So we rolled through and had a pretty detailed breakdown of Houston, Illinois. Let's continue to roll through, get our thoughts on this. Iowa and Nebraska. We'll start here. Good shout by you. I didn't realize that the theme of the pennants behind you were all Big Ten. I just thought that they were all random teams, but they are all Big Ten teams. And we get a Big Ten matchup here. Iowa catching 1.5, total of 132.5. I'm going to ask you in this way. We saw this open 3, immediately got down to 1.5. Are we upgrading Iowa too much here after they beat Florida last weekend? Is there really only a 1.5 difference on a neutral between these two teams?
That would surprise me if that's the power ratings that we are going with. I would say on a neutral floor, Nebraska probably 3 to 4 points better than the Iowa Hawkeyes. I was so impressed with what the Hawks did against the Florida Gators. Femi and I were together on Live Bet Sunday. Femi had the 9.5 points with Ben McCollum and his Iowa team. Also a sprinkle on the money line. And despite the Iowa pennant right over my right shoulder, I told Femi, listen, I don't really see it for the Hawks. I think it's a disastrous matchup against Florida. I think the only thing going for Iowa is that 7 of the 8 previous national champs have been ousted by the round of 32. Now make that 8 of the previous 9 in the big dance. Iowa brought the fight to a Florida team that is one of the best interior defenses in the country all throughout this college basketball season. Iowa was 19 of 27 on their 2-point field goal attempts against UF. They were just 7 of 24 from 3, including Bennett Sturts with a goose egg 0 of 9. If you would have told me that, JVT, box score revisionist history, that Bennett Sturts was 0 of 9 from 3 in the matchup against the reigning champs, I would have said, did Florida win by 25 or 35? It was really impressive what the Hawkeyes did. And I think there are some advantages for what Iowa did to Florida, to what they did to Nebraska in the 2 regular season matchups against the Huskers this year, and what they can continue to do, which have been the 2 pitfalls of a rather efficient defense for Nebraska this season. That's out-rebounding the Huskers. The Hawkeyes did that heavily in both of the regular season meetings, first in Iowa City in the win, even in the overtime loss in Lincoln in the regular season finale. And an Iowa team that needs to have success from 3. But this is an Iowa team that in the last 10 games for the Hawks, basically the final 3 weeks or so leading into Sweet 16 weekend, is shooting just 32% from 3. And we talked about the dismal approach they had against the Gators. That is the weakness for Nebraska defensively. Hoops talked about it as well. The Huskers will let you take about 50% of your tries from beyond that 3-point line. If you are telling me Iowa is only a 1.5 underdog and about 40 cents in terms of the money line distinctions for this Sweet 16 matchup, they have to be better from 3 than they were against Florida. And I understand they brought the physicality to the Gators. I'm not sure they can replicate that for a second consecutive game. A lot of money on the under early in the week, a little bit of buyback now in the over. I still think this game is played very slowly paced between 2 teams that are now seeing each other for a 3rd time this year. I would still lean on the under, and I would lean maybe on Nebraska having the advantages to win this matchup just outright. I will not bet this game as it pulls at my heartstrings and just enjoy the historical accomplishments of both of these clubs playing in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I laid 1.5 with Nebraska today, to the point of, the number. And in some of these projection sites, they're very good tools. If you really put some stock into them, 2 of them, Haslametrics and Bartorvik, have this more as a 1.5 point spread. KenPom has this at 3. So take that what you will. But I just go back to watching this Iowa team, maybe thinking the market's upgrading them a little bit after a Florida win, which maybe shouldn't be there. And I really like this Nebraska team defensively. They've done a very good job. Statistically, one of the better ones still in the field. Very underrated in that regard. Let me ask you this, something or nothing. I have pointed out that if you go to the 2 regular season matchups that these teams played, Iowa won the archaic, slow-paced game where the total of possessions was around 60, maybe high 50s. Nebraska won the overtime game where possessions got into the 70s. Does that matter?
Yes, I think it absolutely does. Nebraska is a little bit slower than you might think for a fast-paced team, but they can operate efficiently on both sides of the floor. Iowa is the 5th slowest team in all of college basketball. It is the system that has worked for the Hawks this year in terms of what they want to do defensively to really slow you down in your half-court sets. And also, as we have learned through the opening weekend, they are very comfortable in the final 5 seconds of a 30-second shot clock offensively to still get off a rather clean look. So I do believe if this game is played to the over, it may be substantially over, around 140, which it was in regulation, by the way, in that OT meeting in Lincoln to end out the regular season. That favors the Huskers. If we trend toward the under, it's not a game Nebraska cannot win, but of course, I think that benefits the Hawkeyes.
Yep. All right, 1.5 again, total 132.5. One of the fun games of the day. All of these look really good on paper. Later today, we have another one, and this is in a little bit of a different region, but I teased this, so let's get to this one. 6:45 p.m. Pacific time, 9:45 for you freaks out there on the East Coast. Arizona taking on Arkansas. 8 with some 8.5 starting to appear. Total 165.5, 165. I'm also looking at a 164.5 out here locally. What does the demure Darius Acuff have in front of him here against this Arizona team? Because I think that's a matchup that a lot of people like Acuff. We've had a lot of conversations about him being the first overall pick in the NBA draft. We've talked to some folks earlier in the week that have thrown some water on that thing as to that not really happening. But I think that this is a kind of bad matchup for Arkansas. That's a big group in that backcourt that he's got to face, both get by them defensively, Ben, and then on the other side, I would assume Braden Burries is going to try to find him on almost every single possession and go after him. That's a big size mismatch. And then the lack of depth. Arkansas is playing with 6 guys. Arizona's deeper, longer, more athletic. I feel like we're at a point with Tommy Lloyd where people just want to go, the guy's got nothing. But I think this team is very good. One of his more talented teams, if not the most talented team, with some continuity dating back to the offseason. I like Arizona here, and I think this is the game that I was referring to because I believe you do too.
Yep. Arizona is what I have laid tonight with 7.5. Arizona JVT is my national championship pick for many of the reasons that you just highlighted. Darius Acuff Jr., my personal feelings in the last at least 2 months, is the best freshman in a wildly talented freshman class in all of college basketball. Much like you, I think Darius Acuff Jr. could be, or perhaps should be, the number 1 overall pick later this June for the 2026 NBA draft, or maybe better well said, might have the best NBA career, even over guys like Darren Peterson or AJ DiBonsa. But in terms of this matchup, you have an Arkansas team that is one of the fastest in the country, top 20 in terms of tempo. You have one of the most efficient offenses, now 5th most efficient in all of the sport. But that's what Arizona is so good at. 3rd most efficient defense, despite playing at a very fast tempo as well. Braden Burries is going to get his looks on Darius Acuff Jr. I think Jaden Bradley, who is a great on-ball defender, will cause a little bit of chaos for the freshman point guard for the Hogs. And even outside of Acuff, everything in my estimation favors the Wildcats in this game. Arkansas is not great defensively. In fact, Arkansas allows opponents 52% of their point production this year in 2-point makes. Yep. That plays right into the hand for Arizona. They are a team right now, JVT, that takes fewer than 27% of their threes or of their field goals from 3. It is the 3rd fewest 3-point rate in the country. That is very different than a lot of the high-flying, efficient offenses that we have been accustomed to see now in college hoops. That is not how Tommy Lloyd and his Arizona team construct things offensively. So they can take advantage of the weakness for Arkansas because 57% of their points come on 2-point field goals this year. Big Mo Krivas, Tobe Awaka, of course, Koa Pete, I think have their way against the interior presence for Arkansas. It's why I laid the 7.5 earlier in the day. I would still be comfortable laying 8.5. I think Arizona wins this game by double digits.
The perplexed look on my face is my guy Shane Smith got a bad call here. They're going to challenge it, and that is going to be a strike. So a win for the Robots as we get a strike call.
Maybe, yes.
Ball overturned. Big situation here, too. 1 out, bases loaded. So Smith's got a little bit of a jam to work out of, but much better to have an 0-1 count. Total-wise, what do you make of this? We've seen this ping-pong around last 50 seconds or so. As high as 167.5, as low as 164. We're settling in at 165.
I was surprised to see this bet up. I understand why. Again, Arizona, third most efficient defense, but a top 70 teams in terms of their pace and speed this year. Arkansas top 20 in the country. That, in terms of pace, is going to have more of an impact on the total than how good either team is on the defensive side of the floor. But I think if, like us, we believe in this Arizona team, JVT, laying 7.5, laying 8.5 tonight, I actually think it trends. If the Cats are to cover, we trend toward the under. I like to see where this total is working back down to 164 and a hook.
Smith gives it up. It's a little bloop to the center of the field, and that's it. That's all she wrote. $9.99 daily best bets for the VSiN experts. It's all part of our Sweet 16 package. You can get the VSiN Pro daily, real-time betting splits, 24/7 video, replays on the VSiN Watch app, and more. Start today. $9.99. Save 50% with an annual subscription. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe.